There are things you never forget. Words that stick to your soul like invisible scars. You only bring us shame, Emily. Why can't you be more like your sister, Claire? My mother said that in front of the entire family, during a Sunday dinner that was supposed to be normal. I was 17, with badly dyed pink hair, a nose piercing, and dreams nobody took seriously. My name is Emily Parker. I grew up in Sweetwater, Texas, a town so small that everyone knows everyone, and that's not a good thing when you're the black sheep of the perfect family. My older sister, Claire, was everything I wasn't. Natural blonde, cheerleading captain, engaged to the local football team's quarterback, with plans to marry, have kids, and never leave that suffocating town. Me. I read books about environmental engineering, questioned everything, wore dark clothes, and dreamed of actually changing the world. For my mother, Diane Parker, a woman obsessed with appearances and what the neighbors thought, I was a walking disappointment. That Sunday dinner was the breaking point. The final straw after years of cruel comparisons, disapproving looks, and tired sighs every time I entered a room. When she said those words, "You only bring us shame," something broke inside me. Not from sadness. From determination. The table went silent. My father looked at his plate. Claire smirked behind her glass of sweet tea. My aunt pretended to be interested in the casserole. Nobody defended me. Nobody ever did. "I'm sorry I'm not perfect like Claire," I said quietly, standing up. "I'm sorry I don't want to marry someone at 19 and spend my life gossiping at the beauty salon. I'm sorry I actually want to do something meaningful." My mother's face went red. "Don't you dare speak to me that way. This family has given you everything, and all you do is embarrass you." "I know. You've made that very clear." I left the table, went to my room, and made a decision that would change everything. 3 days later, I packed my bags. It wasn't dramatic. No slamming doors or screaming matches. Just quiet determination as I folded my clothes and put my books into a worn backpack. I had $600 saved from working at the local cafe. It wasn't much, but it was mine. My plan was simple: get to Austin, find work, enroll in community college, and build a life that had nothing to do with Sweetwater or my family's expectations. I left on a Wednesday morning. Light rain was falling, the kind that makes everything gray and sad. My mother was in the kitchen when I came downstairs with my bag. "Where do you think you're going?" she asked, not even turning around from the dishes. "Austin. Austin." She laughed bitterly. "To do what? You have no money, no plan, no future." "I have more of a plan than staying here and becoming another Sweetwater housewife." Now she turned around, her face hard. "You think you're better than us, better than this town, better than your sister." "I think I deserve a chance to be myself without being told I'm a disappointment every single day." "You'll be back in a month," she said coldly. "When reality hits and you realize the world doesn't care about your feelings or your big ideas. You'll come back begging for help." "I won't." "You will. And when you do, don't expect me to welcome you with open arms. You made your choice." I looked at her, this woman who gave birth to me but never really saw me, and felt something shift. Not anger. Not even sadness. Just release. "Goodbye, Mom." I walked out the door, into the rain, and didn't look back. The sound of the gate closing behind me was the sound of my old life ending. Austin was overwhelming. Coming from a town of 3,000 people to a city of nearly 1 million was like landing on another planet. I found a room to rent in a house shared by 4 other people near the university. It was tiny, barely big enough for a twin bed and a desk, but it was mine. $250 a month. I got 3 jobs immediately. Morning shift at a coffee shop near campus. Afternoon shift cleaning offices in a downtown building. Evening shift waitressing at a diner. Between the jobs, I attended community college classes. I started with basic courses, math, English, science, working toward eventually transferring to a 4-year university. My schedule was brutal. Up at 5 a.m., home by midnight, homework until 2 a.m., sleep for 3 hours, repeat. I lived on ramen noodles, peanut butter sandwiches, and coffee. So much coffee. My roommates were nice enough, but we barely saw each other. They were traditional students with normal lives, parties, dating, studying. I was a ghost who passed through, exhausted and focused. The first semester was the hardest. I was lonely, broke, and constantly questioning if my mother had been right. Maybe I couldn't make it. Maybe I should go home. But every time that thought crept in, I remembered her words, "You only bring us shame." And I worked harder. I didn't call home. They didn't call me. Claire got married in a ceremony I wasn't invited to. Life in Sweetwater continued without me, and I continued without it. By my second semester, something changed. I wasn't just surviving, I was discovering who I actually was, away from the shadow of my perfect sister and the weight of my mother's expectations. I loved my environmental science classes, loved learning about ecosystems, sustainability, renewable resources. Loved the idea that I could help solve real problems affecting real people. For the first time in my life, I felt like I had found my purpose. It happened in my 3rd semester at community college. I was taking an Introduction to Environmental Engineering course taught by Professor Marcus Chen, a brilliant researcher who had worked with the EPA and various NGOs. We had an assignment to propose a solution to a local environmental problem. Most students chose simple topics, recycling programs, urban gardens, bike lanes. I chose water contamination in rural Texas communities. I spent 2 weeks researching. I interviewed people from small towns similar to Sweetwater. I learned about aging infrastructure, agricultural runoff, and communities that had been drinking unsafe water for decades. My proposal was for a low-cost, sustainable water purification system that could be implemented in communities with limited resources. When I turned it in, I didn't expect much. It was just an assignment. A week later, Professor Chen asked me to stay after class. "Emily, your proposal is remarkable," he said, holding my paper. "This isn't just good for a community college student. This is graduate-level thinking." I stared at him, unsure how to respond. "I'm working with a research team on a project related to water access in underserved communities," he continued. "It's volunteer work for now, no pay, but it would give you real experience and look incredible on university transfer applications. Would you be interested?" Would I be interested? It was everything I had dreamed about. "Yes," I said immediately. "Absolutely yes." That conversation changed my life. For the first time, someone saw my potential. Not my hair color or my clothes or how I compared to someone else. My actual abilities. My ideas. My worth. I started working with Professor Chen's research team that week. It meant even less sleep and even more coffee, but I didn't care. I was finally doing something that mattered. The next 2 years were a blur of work, study, and sacrifice. While my roommates went to parties and football games, I worked in the lab. While they posted about spring break trips, I posted about research findings. I transferred to the University of Texas at Austin with a full scholarship based on my research work and academic performance. It was a miracle, considering I had started with nothing. My life became even more intense. Full course load in environmental engineering. Continued research work. Still working part-time at the coffee shop because scholarships don't cover everything. I dated occasionally, but nothing serious. I didn't have time or energy for relationships. My college friends would joke that I was married to my work. They weren't wrong. Every few months, I'd get a text from my mother. Brief. Cold. Impersonal. "Hope you're doing well. Claire had a baby. A boy." Your father asks about you sometimes. Never, we miss you. Never, we're proud of you. Never, come home. I stopped responding after a while. What was the point? But I kept a folder on my laptop labeled Sweetwater. Inside were screenshots of every award, every recognition, every achievement. I told myself it was for me to track my progress. Deep down, I knew it was for the day I could show my mother she was wrong about me. In my senior year, Professor Chen offered me the opportunity to lead a research project. The goal: develop a scalable, affordable water purification system for rural communities in Texas that lacked access to clean drinking water. It was exactly what I had proposed in that community college assignment 3 years earlier. Except now, I had the knowledge, resources, and team to actually make it happen. I assembled a group of 5 students from different disciplines: engineering, chemistry, public health, business. We worked like demons for 8 months. The system we developed used solar power, locally sourced materials, and could be maintained by community members with minimal training. It could purify water for a community of up to 500 people at a cost of less than $3,000 per installation. We tested it in 3 communities. The results were incredible. Water quality improved dramatically. Waterborne illness rates dropped. Operating costs were minimal. Local news picked up the story. Then state news. Then national publications. Suddenly, Emily Parker from Sweetwater, Texas, the girl who only brought shame to her family, was being interviewed about innovative solutions to water access problems. The girl who embarrassed her mother was being called a young leader in environmental engineering. The University of Texas took notice. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday afternoon in April. Gold embossed, official university seal, addressed to Miss Emily Rose Parker. My hands shook as I opened it. The University of Texas at Austin cordially invites you to receive the Medal of Community Innovation at the annual achievement ceremony. This award recognizes exceptional contributions by students whose work has demonstrably improved the lives of Texans. I read it 3 times before it felt real. The ceremony was in 6 weeks. It would be attended by university administration, local government officials, media, and family members of the recipients. The letter included a form asking who I wanted to invite. I sat on my couch, a slightly better couch than my first Austin apartment, in a slightly better apartment, and cried. Not sad tears. Overwhelmed tears. Victory tears. Vindication tears. I thought about my mother saying I'd come back begging. About Claire's smirk at that dinner table. About years of being told I wasn't enough. And now this. I could leave the family section blank. Invite only my professors and friends. Let my achievement stand on its own, separate from Sweetwater and everything it represented. But something in me wanted them to see. Needed them to see. I filled out the form and listed my mother, Diane Parker. Then I called Professor Chen and asked him to be the one to send the official invitation. From the university. On official letterhead. I wanted my mother to receive an invitation she couldn't ignore or dismiss. 2 weeks later, I got a text. Received an invitation from your university. Will attend. Mom, 8 words. No, congratulations. No, I'm proud of you. Just confirmation of attendance. It was so perfectly her that I almost laughed. But she was coming. And that's what mattered. The ceremony was held in the Bass Concert Hall, the university's premier venue. I had never been inside before. The space was overwhelming. Soaring ceilings, elegant architecture, seats for nearly 3,000 people. The hall was full. Families, faculty, press. I wore a simple navy dress and the blazer Professor Chen had helped me pick out. My hair was its natural brown now, pulled back professionally. No piercings. I looked like someone who belonged on that stage. I didn't see my mother during the reception beforehand. Part of me wondered if she had changed her mind. Then the ceremony began, and I saw her. Fourth row, aisle seat. Alone. She looked smaller than I remembered. Older. Her hair had more gray. She wore a floral dress that was too formal, like she wasn't sure what to wear to a university event. Our eyes met for a brief second. She looked away first. There were 5 award recipients. I was the last. When they called my name, the applause was thunderous. Professor Chin stood and clapped. My research team cheered from the balcony. The university president himself placed the medal around my neck. Then it was time for my speech. I had written and rewritten it a dozen times, practiced it until I could say it in my sleep. But standing at that podium, looking out at the crowd, seeing my mother in that 4th row, the prepared words felt wrong. I set my notes aside. 10 years ago, I began, my voice steady. Someone told me I was an embarrassment, that I would fail, that I would come back begging for help when the real world crushed my big ideas. The hall went silent. That person wasn't trying to be cruel. They were trying to protect me, to save me from disappointment, to keep me in a safe, predictable life where I wouldn't get hurt. I looked directly at my mother. She was crying. But here's what I learned. Sometimes the people who love us can't see our potential because they're too afraid of our failure. Sometimes the greatest gift someone can give you is underestimating you, because it forces you to prove them wrong, not for them, but for yourself. I held up the medal. This isn't about being better than anyone. It's about being brave enough to become who you actually are, even when everyone tells you you're not enough. Especially when they tell you you're not enough. To anyone listening who feels like the disappointment, the embarrassment, the one who doesn't fit, your difference isn't your weakness. It's your strength. And someday, the people who couldn't see it will. The applause was deafening. I walked off stage, legs shaking, heart pounding. And there, waiting in the lobby, was my mother. She looked so small standing there, clutching her purse, mascara running down her face. "Emily," she said, voice breaking. "Mom." We stood there, 2 people who shared blood and history but had become strangers. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." All the anger I had carried for years, all the hurt and resentment, suddenly felt exhausting. "You were wrong about me," I said simply. "I know." She was openly crying now. "I was so wrong. About everything. I thought protecting you meant keeping you small. Keeping you safe. I thought if you stayed in Sweetwater, you'd have a good life. A normal life. I never wanted normal. I see that now. I saw what you built. What you accomplished. Completely on your own. And I realized." She could barely get the words out. I realized that I lost 10 years with my daughter because I was too proud and too scared to see who she really was. "I just wanted you to believe in me," I said, and my own voice cracked. "I didn't need you to understand my dreams. I just needed you to support them. To support me. I know. And I failed you. Completely." She reached out hesitantly, like she wasn't sure she had the right to touch me. "Can you forgive me? Not now, maybe. But someday." I looked at this woman who had hurt me so deeply, who had driven me away, who had made me feel worthless for so long. And I saw something I hadn't seen before. Her own fear. Her own limitations. Her own pain. "I don't know yet," I said honestly. "But I'm willing to try." She sobbed and pulled me into a hug. It was awkward and uncomfortable, and my first instinct was to pull away. But I didn't. We stood there in that lobby, people flowing around us, and held on to each other. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a start. 6 months later, I was in a classroom in a small rural school outside of Marfa, Texas. 20 young girls, ages 12 to 16, sat in front of me with wide eyes as I explained how our water purification system worked. Science isn't about being the smartest person in the room, I told them. It's about caring enough to solve problems that matter. About being brave enough to try, even when people tell you you're wasting your time. A girl in the back raised her hand. She had dark curly hair and wore clothes that didn't quite fit right. My mom says girls don't need to study engineering. That it's for boys. I smiled, recognizing myself in her. My mom once told me I was an embarrassment to my family, that I should give up my dreams and be normal. I paused. 6 months ago, she watched me receive one of the highest honors at the University of Texas. You know what changed? You proved her wrong? The girl asked. No. I proved myself right. And that's much more important. The girls laughed. After the presentation, several of them came up with questions. About college. About scholarships. About whether someone like them could actually become an engineer. Yes, I told each one. Absolutely yes. Driving back to Austin that evening, I thought about my journey. From Sweetwater to Austin. From embarrassment to medal recipient. From lost to found. My relationship with my mother was still complicated. We talked now, carefully, cautiously. She had started therapy. Started questioning the beliefs she had held for so long. We weren't close. Maybe we never would be. But we were trying. And that was enough. I pulled over at a rest stop and looked out at the Texas landscape. Vast, harsh, beautiful. My phone buzzed. A text from Professor Chen. Just got confirmation. Your water system is being implemented in 12 more communities next quarter. You're changing lives, Emily. Proud of you. I smiled and looked at the medal sitting on my passenger seat. It caught the late afternoon light, gleaming. I didn't keep it on display. It lived in my car, where I saw it every day. A reminder not of achievement, but of the girl who left Sweetwater with $600 and a backpack full of dreams. She didn't leave to prove anyone wrong. She left to prove herself right. And in the end, that was the only thing that mattered.